Hey guys, my name's Clint. I'm going to share my story with you. So I grew up in central Wisconsin in a Catholic home. We basically went to church pretty much every weekend. That really didn't mean anything to me at the time, though. At a young age of 6, my parents got divorced. And I grew up in a broken home for the most part of my life. This consisted of us just moving around from house to house. My mom, in particular, just being in multiple different relationships and marriages and stuff, and just having to move and some of the hassles that go with that, and just some of the hassles that go with having a broken home and a split family. Um, Fast forward to high school, I found my identity in my sports that I played. I was a pretty good athlete, so this was okay for the time being, at least I should say. When things were good, which they were pretty much for the my entire high school career, they were super good. And this was great because my self worth was super high and super good. One bad thing, I took advantage of the perks that come along with being a good athlete, and just things consisting of like drinking and like test scores, things like that nature that really weren't good, but this stuff that happened. I came to the University of Minnesota Duluth my freshman year of college, and I was no longer a super good athlete, and I basically lost my value, my self worth, and I really didn't know how to handle it. So I began to cope with different substances, and alcohol being the main one. My second semester, my freshman year, so spring semester, I got my first underage minor consumption drinking ticket, and I really just didn't know how to handle it. Like this stuff had never happened to me before, and my life slowly started to spiral downward. After a couple months, I began to see that I was becoming depressed, and things just continued to get worse and worse. I was no longer this superstar athlete, and um, I had some family relationship problems that were going on, and between the pressures of school and just everything, I really didn't know how to handle it. So that summer, going into my sophomore year, things continued to get worse and worse, and there was a handful of times where I was even suicidal, and I really just didn't know how to handle things. But the football season started back up, and I didn't make the traveling team my sophomore year. So the first away game, I decided that I was going to stay home with one of my roommates and start drinking. That's the last thing I remember until I woke up in the hospital the next morning. I was covered in blood and tubes and puke, and I had no idea where I was. I was completely lost and just afraid, basically. My mom was there, and this was probably the lowest point in my life. Throughout this entire 6 to 8 month period of time, I did have one really good friend who would basically talk me off the ledge, anywhere from 1 to 2 to 4 to 6 hours every single day. Like no joke, every single day. And this guy was married. He had a wife. He had kids. He was 50 some years old. And he basically just did this out of the kindness of his heart. Um, so after this second incident, um, this guy called me and he was like, Clint, I'm super worried about you. I don't know what to do. Is it alright if I come up and see you next weekend? And I was like, yeah, sure. That's fine, whatever. So he came up September 21st, 2013, came to a football game, and then we went out for dinner afterwards, him and his wife. And their big thing was, Clint, we're going to take you to church tomorrow. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I grew up in a Catholic home. Like, we went to church all the time. It never really meant anything to me. Looked good in the community, but there was never that relationship. And I truthfully didn't even know that there could be a relationship between God and between a person. So that morning, September 22nd, 2013, we went to church, and I showed up a half hour late, so they thought I was going to skip, but I eventually made it, and we were basically just welcomed with open arms. And that was the morning that I determined that I was in need of a Savior, and that Jesus Christ was that Savior. So I basically surrendered my life that day, and things actually got a lot tougher after that. I was forced to face some consequences from the choices that I'd made. Some of these being just hospital bills to an outpatient rehab program, just a wide variety of things, and just even small things like living like a double life between friend groups and trying to fit in and be a people pleaser. And I'm happy to say that I still sin. I still have sin in my life, and it's amazing the amount of sin and how unworthy I truly am. Uh, but Jesus Christ is my Savior, and I'm forever grateful. Good to go.